Welcome back to the Hoop Bar. This is season 2, episode 31. We have in the Eastern Conference, we have the 2-seeded Brooklyn Nets versus the 3rd-seeded Milwaukee Bucks. Game 1 is this Saturday, 4 p.m. Pacific Daylight Savings Time. In Brooklyn, the Nets are favored by 4 points. Any odds provided on this podcast are from Bovada. The series betting odds, the Nets are a minus 210, and the Bucks are a plus 175. As far as net ratings go, the Nets' offensive rating is number 1 in the league. Defensive ratings 23rd with a net rating of 7th. The Bucks 6th in offense, 10th in defense with a net rating of 4. The Nets' major injuries: they've had Spencer Dinwiddie gone all season. Nothing. Well, of course, they would love to have him back this series or these playoffs, but he won't be coming back these playoffs. And of the Bucks had Dante DiVincenzo, their starting shooting guard, injured last series, and he is out for the playoffs with a foot injury. Rahul, how do you see this series going? How do you see this series going, and what is your ultimate prediction for who wins?
You know, it's no secret what I've been saying about the Nets all year long, right? I'm not going to hold back now. I'm going to tell you the same thing I've been saying. I want to see them play defense because I think a championship team has to play defense in order to win. They haven't really felt the pressure yet, but they gave up a lot of points in the paint to the Celtics, who really just had Tatum. I mean, that's it. And so now you have a somewhat of a big three this year. Middleton, Giannis, obviously, and an upgrade at point guard, and Drew Holiday. So the Bucks love to score in the paint. This year, the Bucks love to shoot the three as well. We talked about that in a preview in the first round. So I know the Nets, how they're going to play Giannis. If actually I was reading a stat that no other team plays Giannis this way more than the Nets, which is that they give him more room to shoot. I think it's like social distancing level, 6 feet, to shoot that three-pointer in comparison to anybody else in the league. So that's their game plan. Keep him out of the paint. Let him shoot the three. And just like the Bucks were ready for the Heat in terms of how they play, I feel like the Bucks will be ready. Both teams, we're not getting a defensive matchup by all means. Like that's not happening, right? This is the number 1 and number 2 scoring teams in the NBA. Number 1 being the Bucks, number 2 being the Brooklyn Nets at 120 and 118, I believe. So both teams are going to shoot. They're going to score. They're going to go up and down. Nobody's playing defense. Even if the Bucks are better defensively, like you said, Matt, in ratings, I think if the style of play is going to be easy to get away from that because both teams can score. So I think ultimately it's going to come down to how Giannis does against that sort of defense. But I think this time he has a little bit more help. I'm not here to make predictions. I think it's going to be a really good series. I want to see a couple of games before I see how the coaches make adjustments. And that was my next point. I feel that, for example, the Suns and Lakers, we can give credit to Chris Paul and his team and his IQ and his leadership 100% because that's how the Lakers won last year with Rondo and LeBron on the floor. But Monty Williams has to get credit in the way he coached his team and coached against the plan that he had against LeBron and packing the paint and really limiting the Lakers offense even more than it already looked before that series started. So at some point I have to go back and think, who's going to be a better defensive coach? I just don't think that that's something Nash, D'Antoni, and the crew think about. So I think as the series progresses, the Bucks are more likely to make more adjustments. I agree with you that Kenzo is a big loss. I heard Green is out for the Nets because he was injured, I guess, last year. I'm not, don't quote me on that, but I believe he might be out. So to me, that's a big loss too. Blake Griffin's probably going to be on Giannis to start because they're not going to want to get anybody else in foul trouble. But I think the size of the Bucks is going to give them a lot of problems. They have Lopez. And Giannis is defensive player of the year and he's not 6 foot, right? So it's going to be a really good series. It's going to be up and down. I like to see the first couple of games and see who's going to win. In other series, you would say, offense. If offense wins, then it's the Nets, but you can't say that because the Bucks score just as much.
So with the Lakers, we're gonna pour one out later for the Lakers. So let's save that to the end. With the Lakers being eliminated yesterday and Embiid being injured, who knows how long he'll be out. A lot of pundits, a lot of media members are calling this series the real NBA Finals. And the most recent example of this being that Warriors Rockets Western Conference Finals in 2018, where no one from the East was LeBron's team wasn't going to beat any of those two teams that were going to come out of the West. Another good example is the 2002 Lakers versus Kings series. The Nets weren't going to beat any of those two teams, so that was the de facto NBA Finals. So a lot of pundits, I even believe that too. This is the NBA Finals, especially with Embiid potentially being injured. It's really easy to say the Nets can score at any time, then play defense when it absolutely matters. Durant and Harden go for 80 points combined, then it frees up Harris and Shamet to make them threes, Nets and 5. That's the easy way out, I think. I don't think that's the case. I will zig on that one. For as historically talented as the Nets are on offense, I think they're still bad defensive, like you mentioned, Rahul. And I don't believe they have had the repetition chemistry-wise to develop to be an average defensive team. Defense, especially in the playoffs, just takes more than just effort. It takes scheming. Like, you haven't had a player like Harden. Like, I'm not sure how much he was going to help you that much on defense, but you still were going to develop, chemistry on that end of the floor when you're going to need it. Even with two of the top 3 defensive teams losing in the first round, like the Lakers and the Knicks, generally the team with a better defense has the advantage in the playoffs, and I still think that's going to be the case. I think the Bucks have enough firepower to keep up with the Nets, like you mentioned, Roll. And they have enough defensively to slow them down, just enough, especially with Giannis commanding the middle. I don't see a lot of Brook Lopez in this series. It's going to be a lot of Giannis at the 5, and that's going to be perfectly fine. Drew Holiday and PJ Tucker. PJ Tucker was an immense pickup for them midseason because it provided them tough. So yeah, he's providing the toughness. Those two especially are providing the toughness that this team did not have in years past. So. And also with Giannis and Middleton now being, I believe they're now underrated after what they've been through the last 2 seasons, all the failures that you've gone through. A lot of good teams have been through failure. So I think the playoff pain will lead to redemption. And I'm picking the Bucks in 6. They're going to win that one at home, and then we'll see what happens with the Sixers and Hawks. But that's what I fully believe. Again, it could be easy. Like, the Nets could just blow them out, and I wouldn't be surprised. But after kind of looking at the series, I think the Bucks could take this.
Yeah, I know, and and you brought up a lot of great points, and the one that you called out, like, we talked about defense winning in the playoffs, and how are the Lakers and Knicks out, and those two are the top, one of the, I think, top out of 2 out of 3, and the Miami Heat were up there too, so they're out too. But every single one of those teams has the same problem, which was that there's no offense. Right. And so the Bucks don't have that problem. Again, they are the number 1 scoring in terms of points per game in the league over the Nets. So they play defense better and they can score. The Lakers were not like that. The Knicks were not like that. The Heat were not like that. So you're right. I actually did have the Bucks in 6. I don't want to say it just officially, even though I just did. But I want to watch at least one game, and I want to see what that game looks like and what kind of adjustments you can expect after that game.
It's funny because I would pick. I'm still gonna say Bucks in 6, but I would actually the Nets -4 game 1. I would take the Nets first game 1, just as it's a kind of a feeling out sort of process, and then the Bucks would most likely try to figure them out as far as what they're doing on offense, and I would take the Nets in game 1. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I could see that happening. They're at home. And you saw the Bucks, who after game 1 against the Heat, they needed a shot by Middleton to win that game basically at the end. And everything else after that was a blowout. So you're right. I feel like the Bucks will be better prepared for this series than the Nets will be. The Nets, it's going to be very easy for the Nets and their organization to use this year 1 as an excuse. And I just think that when the pressure gets tough, when you lose a game or you lose 2 games, you maybe they lose game 2, right? Which they'll probably have to if you're calling Bucks in 6, and you've given up home court. Now you got to go on the road. I don't know. Let's see. I don't have a lot of faith in that coaching staff. Everything is too new. I think they need a year of growth pains. So that's why I'm going with Bucks and 6.
The only thing that gives me reservation is what happened last year and Coach Bud absolutely not having any adjustments when it came to the Heat. That's the only kind of reservations I have. But between him and Nash, I think it's kind of it's a kind of a wash as far as coaching. So
he was going up against what's his name? Filipino.
Spoelstra. Yeah.
That's a championship coach, right? So
yeah,
coach.
All right, let's move on. We both agree Bucks and 6, but Rahul, I know you're kind of taking it game by game, so we'll see after game 1. The second game, Eastern Conference Finals, the number 1 seeded Philadelphia 76ers versus the 5 seed Atlanta Hawks. Game 1 is Sunday, 10 a.m. Pacific Daylight Savings Time. The Sixers are favored by only 2.5 points. The series betting odds, though, the Sixers are still favored to win the series, minus 175. The Hawks are plus 155. Now, the Sixers ratings, of course, this is with Joel Embiid. Offensively, they're 13th. Defensively, they're 2nd, making their net rating 5th. The Hawks are 8th in offense, 21st in defense, making them 10th overall rating. The Sixers injuries, they have Joel Embiid with a small right knee meniscus tear. He is still day-to-day. As far as when they're going to get him back, no one really knows. Hopefully it's soon, but we'll see. It's just, like we mentioned last podcast, it's a right knee meniscus tear. Who knows what's going to happen? Hawks injuries. Cam Reddish is still out with the Achilles indefinitely. We don't know when he's going to come back, but they have a solid 7 to 8 players that they're playing anyways. So even if he did come back, I wouldn't see him getting much run. Roll. Sixers, most likely minus Embiid versus the red hot Hawks who destroyed the third-rated defensive Knicks. Who do you have in the series, Sixers or the Hawks?
You said it, red hot Atlanta Hawks, red hot. I mean, you gotta understand the offensive weapons that this team has, and the thing is, it's an offensive weapons around a guy like Trae Young who can at will get to wherever he wants to on the floor. Because you can't, if a guy like him or Steph Curry, and I'm not comparing the two just yet, but I'm just saying if a guy like them, they have so much range. Literally the high screen pick and roll or just pulling up on 3. You have so much to respect that when he gets in the lane, you only have the issues of him. You know how he is, right? He draws fouls easily, all of that stuff. You have all of that. He's great with the floaters. He can shoot from anywhere on the floor. He creates a lot for people around him. And then when those people around him are guys like, Bogdanovich, who has been absolutely on a tear since he came back from injury this year. He missed a good part of this year, so he's got some fresh legs, and you can see it. And then guys on the bench. Lou Williams is on this team. Don't forget, Gallinari is on this team. Huerter is a great shooter. He's on this team. Collins and Hunter, Capella, those are some size that this team has. So offensively, so many weapons. The Sixers are no joke, even without Embiid. Guys have stepped up. Doc Rivers is a great coach in terms of the first and second rounds. And so I do not take this light meniscus tear lightly. I don't, no pun, but I just don't take that because to me, if he's day to day, but you don't know when he's actually coming back. And when you say those words, it just sounds terrible for a big guy. When I hear anything tear and his knee, even if it's light, even if it's a day-to-day, I'm not hearing, oh, it's a wrist sprain or an ankle sprain, it's healing, or it's a calf strain. Tear. So I'm not, I'll be honest, if you're a Sixers fan, you can't be happy. They're a great team without him still, but they're a 500 team. So that's not going to get it done, I think, against the Hawks. I don't think you're going to be able to be a 500 team. So it all comes down to him. If he's healthy, then it's the Sixers. But I think the Hawks have a lot of offensive power. And if you're Trae Young, you got to be salivating. This is your first time in the playoffs, and here you are, a chance to go to the Eastern Conference Finals because of some little bit of fortune, right? I just think that even though the Philadelphia 76ers are going to be well coached, they've got a lot of weapons. Seth Curry came on really great. Harris is going to be great for them while Embiid is out, but it's not going to be enough to stop Trae Young. Trae Young is like Booker, not afraid of the moment, and you saw that he went to the Garden and did what he did in 5 games, and took a bow. So I got a lot of respect for him. I actually, it's all going to depend on Embiid's injury. If Embiid's healthy, then I got the Sixers in 6. If he's not, then I'll take the Hawks.
You took the words out of my mouth. Healthy Embiid, like I have this written down. Healthy Embiid, Sixers, and I said Sixers in 5. Embiid injured, the Hawks will win this series. So I have it's my notes, generally the same words as you had to describe the Hawks. Like they're hot, but Trae Young is ice cold. The man, shivers how well he played in New York City. Now he has to go against a potential Danny Green Batiste Thybulle combo that's much more capable than anything New York was able to throw at him. I mean, luckily for Trae, though, he has like a guy that there's a reason they're deep. They have Bogdanovich, and he's a more than a capable secondary ball handler to help to help Trae in case he gets walled off. So to have someone like that, because he was able to take the offense when Trae was injured at the end of the season, and they still did really well. So if they're able to wall off Trae, he'll be perfectly fine. They have a squad. They have a 7-8 man squad that, they're not trying to find who the best players are like the Clippers. They know who their best players are. And I think that cohesion will bode well for them. The overall generally impressed me. I was hoping more from Julius Randle like we had predicted before on our preview, but if they kind of plan to wall you off and you can't really figure it out from there, then you kind of have to take your playoff lumps, and hopefully the Knicks come back from that. So I don't have too much to add. You hit some really good points there with the Hawks. I'm going to also say Hawks and 6. They're really good. They most likely won't beat the Bucks or the Nets. They're a tier below them, but they're very impressive. I'm very impressed with Trae Young. I'm happy for him, honestly, because of all the Luka Doncic, praise that he's getting, and he was, picked before him and all that stuff with Luka Doncic. So I'm glad Ice Trae Young, is getting his flowers during this playoffs, and I hope it continues against the Sixers.
Yeah, we're in agreement. And before we move on, quickly, I forgot a couple of points, and I think it's important. Actually, everybody's forgetting it. No one's talking about this. Matt, the Nets and Bucks series, there's a personal matchup there. There's a little bit of personal hatred there between two stars. You know who I'm talking about.
That is absolutely correct. The Giannis versus Harden rivalry is live. They're going to face each other in the playoffs. We completely forgot about that. That's a really good point that we missed. That's a crazy rivalry that was generated, I think, because Giannis threw the ball at him that one game, and then there was just a lot of talk about being too easy to score if you're 7 feet tall, or whatever Harden said, and there's going back and forth. So yeah, that's a really good point, Rahul. That's gonna be must-eat TV there. And if you're worried about ratings with LeBron and Curry gone, check out this Giannis and Harden series. It's going to be really fun to watch.
Yeah, this might be the best series. And like you said, to your point, I agree that this could be the champion. But I will say the Clippers are up 50-45 here, just with the third quarter starting to get going. If the Clippers win here and win Game 7, I do think the Clippers can legitimately win the NBA championship, and they can beat either the Nets or the Bucks. But don't hold me to it. I said this would be the Clippers' best year, and I thought they were going to mess that up when they went down 0-2. But they have a chance here. So if they can win this game out and win Game 7, we can get to that. But that's the other point. I feel like the Clippers will be the toughest team in terms of both the Bucks and Clippers, probably in terms of both offense and defense and experience.
Let's move on to the Western Conference. The 2-seeded Phoenix Suns versus the 3-seeded Denver Nuggets. Game 1 is Sunday, 4 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. The Suns are favored in Game 1 by 4 points. The series betting odds. The Suns are a -210. The Nuggets are a plus 175. The Suns' ratings, offensively, they're 5th. Defensively, they're 9th. Net rating is 3rd. The Nuggets' ratings, 7th in offense, 12th in defense, 6th overall net rating. The Suns were just dealing with some nagging injuries, but everyone played in that Suns-Lakers series, so no real big injuries there, except for the Chris Paul shoulder, which seemed to get better throughout the series, but I'm pretty sure it's still bothering him. The Nuggets injuries, Jamal Murray out with an ACL tear, along with Will Barton day-to-day with the hamstring, PJ Dozier, the right abductor strain. It's a groin strain, which is so he's out indefinitely. Suns versus Nuggets. No Murray, and still dealing with the shoulder injury, Chris Paul. Rahul, how do you see the series going, and do you have a prediction?
I do have a prediction, and I think this is going to be a really good series, but what do the Suns do that the Blazers don't, Matt? And you've been talking about this. They play defense, right? And again, going back to teams that can do both, there's not very many. The Lakers weren't one of them, right? But the Suns are. They can do both. They know they play really well on offense. CP3 is great, and Brooker is great. As much as I was screaming and yelling that these guys don't want to take threes, because they really didn't. The first 4 games of the series against the Lakers, it was nothing but mid-range. And part of that was CP3. I mean, they both love mid-range. In fact, CP3 shoots like 53% from mid-range. That's like 10% above the league average. And Booker is right there with him. But these guys can also, you saw in game 5 and 6, step back, and Booker just, he's streaky, but he can knock down the 3. If CP3's shoulder's feeling good, he's able to knock down long range shots as well. But they play defense, and I just feel like the Nuggets are just not going to be able to score enough and manufacture enough points without Murray in there. I just don't see that happening. Even though, yes, Joker is great and Ayton's going to have his hands full, but Crowder's there as well. I expect a team effort defensively that should be overwhelming for the Nuggets. I don't think it's going to be an easy win. But the other thing I was worried about was like the Suns, all these younger players like Payne and Johnson, like I mentioned on our quick takes. These guys, they're not afraid of the moment. So credit to Chris Paul. You have to give him credit. As much as I don't like the guy, and I think he's petty, and I do think that Chris Paul tries to injure guys, and he gets away with it because he's considered a savvy vet and it's part of the gamesmanship. I disagree with it. I always disagree with that whole 90s, I'm going to foul you hard because I can't keep up with you. But CP3 does that a lot, and I don't like that. But he does get his teams prepped and ready. And this team is ready. Regardless of their age, they're locked in. So I don't see how the Nuggets can stop them. The Nuggets, in terms of offense, the both teams are going to be great, but the Suns have a better defense. So I'm picking the Suns. I'm picking the Suns in 6.
I'm joined by one of the Ganz live from Hawaii. How's it? Oh, look, and for our YouTube viewers, you're gonna see a good landscape of Hawaii there. This is not a green screen effect. He is actually in Hawaii. We are very jealous of you. He has a chain on with his Adidas shirt, and he looks tired as heck, but we're going to be grilling him now. Well, first, before we get there, how are you feeling, Ganz? You look a little tired.
Yeah, it's been a long day, man. We've been flying since 10. We get to the hotel, and they tell us, hey, wait a couple hours for the 7th floor. We end up getting the 4th floor anyways. So Angry Ganz comes out, goes to the lobby, creates a scene, got some free breakfast coupons, and we settled with the 4th floor. But I'm happy. I'm on my balcony now. It's a great view. It's quiet. Field of open grass here. And yeah, I'm ecstatic to get away for a couple of days.
Nets versus Bucks. Who do you have in that series?
Well, I mean, is it DiVincenzo that's out for the series? I think that's going to make
DiVincenzo's out. Yep.
Yeah, it's going to make all the difference in the world, because with DiVincenzo out, he would have. I mean, I'm not saying he's a Kyrie stopper, but the way he plays defense, he would have made it. He would have made it tough for Kyrie. Now that he's gone, I know Drew Holiday is stepping up, but no, man, I see it being 4-2. I think Milwaukee would win 2, and they'll will their way to win 2, but it's going to be 4-2, and that's just because Durant's not playing any defense right now, and the Nets are still not playing any defense. But I think they have enough offense that they're still going to win.
All right, Sixers versus Hawks. Who do you have in that series?
Is Embiid out? I mean, that's the question.
That's the question. Let's say he's out game 1. Does that change your series pick, or what's up?
If Embiid is out, I'm taking the Hawks in 6, 4-2.
You agree with us?
Yeah,
I thought that was going to be shocking, like when I wrote that down, but no, you all agree. Okay,
we all agree. Yeah, the Hawks are The Hawks are really good offense.
Okay, so we're in the middle of previewing the Suns versus the Nuggets. Rahul had a lot of good points there. Before I get to my stuff, who do you have? Suns versus Nuggets.
I think the Suns are in for a shock. I think the Suns played a horrible, horrible Laker team. Not that they're a bad team, just that they struggled so bad this series. And the Suns probably are on their high horse thinking that they defeated, it wasn't last year's champs. I don't know what happened to Lakers, but there was an identity swap. So now they're going to go into Denver, and I think Denver's going to destroy them. I have Denver taking it. As good as Booker is, the way Denver's playing as a team collectively, and Denver plays defense, and they've been able to score with Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter. Man, Denver. I say Denver in 6.
You took my prediction before I got to mine. You took my prediction out of my mouth. It's either Denver in 6, Suns in 7. I'm going to pick Denver in 6. Ayton can't foul out like he did against Nurkic. Just to kind of get to my stuff real quick. Ayton has to stay in the game because your other bigs are Kaminsky and Saric. That's not going to cut it against someone like Jokic. So Michael Porter Jr. and Austin and Gordon have to win their matchups, and then Monte Morris and Austin Rivers has to approximate Murray scoring like they did during the Portland series. So Denver in 6. Now shout out to my friend Josue who came up with this name. We have the last call. This will be the last segment of our podcast for today. The 3 of us are Laker fans. Let's now, if you're not a Laker fan, go ahead and we'll see you guys next time. But let's pour one out for the 2020-2021 Los Angeles Lakers. Once AD got injured, it just fell apart from there. The Lakers tried to do tactically some stuff they really should have been doing earlier in Game 6, but they didn't come out with any heart in that first quarter. The Suns got out to like a 25-26 point lead, and the Lakers couldn't recover from there. So I think with the Ganz kind of saying the Lakers played really horribly, Rahul, do you want to pour one out for the Lakers, and what are your last kind of things you want to say about this Lakers team and Lakers season?
I love this Laker team. I know they didn't win a championship, but I love this Laker team. If you look at the roster, every single time we got one of these guys, they're not has-beens. Drummond isn't a has-been. Shorter isn't a has-been. Gasol is, but he's still very much contributing, right? I love this team. I'm going to miss this team. I know it's going to be a different roster next year. This team was 21-7. LeBron James was first and second in MVP voting when they were 21-7, clicking on all cylinders, firing away. That's the team. That's the reason I never lost hope, because I knew they could potentially get back to that. But it wasn't meant to be. This team has a lot of injuries, a lot of inconsistency stuff, but it's not because of a lack of talent. I'm gonna miss this team because there's gonna be some changes for sure. I'm sure there is. But I feel like that we ran into, we all thought that the Suns were the better matchup for us. But honestly, the Suns are a really good team on both ends of the floor, better than a lot of the other matchups that we might have come across, even the Clippers, because they don't seem to be what the Clippers need to be in order to win a championship right now. So unfortunately, it didn't work out this year, but I'm really a fan of this team. If I'm playing NBA 2K, I'm still picking this team. And it's not just because they're Lakers. I really like this roster, you guys. I feel like they can do good. Maybe with a few adjustments. We need a scorer. That's the only problem. With Davis and LeBron, if they're 110%, they're good enough. You can have the other guys that we have. They're still great players. Other guys like Schroeder as the third option, Kuzma as the third, 3A, 3B. great, good enough. But when those guys are not 100%, then we're really anemic, as you saw. Like, then you really have 1.5 superstar with LeBron showing his age. You might even have a half superstar at that point if Anthony Davis is injured. So I think that was the issue. We need that third scorer. We need a guy. We don't need an all-star. We need a guy that's borderline all-star, a guy that can score. And Schroeder wasn't it. Kuzma wasn't it. I can't hear you. You're on mute. but I'm that's what I'm saying. I'm happy with the team.
I just had Kyle Lowry, Schroeder.
I feel you, but I feel like at the moment Schroeder made a lot of sense. But I now all those people that were screaming for Lowry, they sound great. Because you're right, he would have had a little bit more fight and he would have had a little bit more offensive prowess. I'm trying to look for the right word there. You're right, but that would have been a rental. But it looks like Schroeder's a rental. But I still love this team. I feel like there'll be a couple of adjustments. They're not going to make any big moves.
All right, Ganz, pour one out for the Lakers. What do you got?
Schroeder, trash. From day one, where he said, I better be a starter. Prove that you're a starter. We know you're the starter. Why you got to come out and say it? Your little games throughout the season, you couldn't shoot pretty much all season. You can't say he sucked in the playoff. He had some big moments where he could drive in and he played defense. Yes, I'll give him that. Don't need him, don't want him, let him go. I don't know, man. I think we need to dismantle the team or Vogel needs a new way. You had the sixth man of the year, and I voiced the concern of everyone else and saying, why didn't he play more meaningful minutes early? Why didn't you try out something different when you have other options on the bench? I don't know that they do suck. Like, maybe it's that you didn't give McLemore a real chance. Maybe it's that you played a lineup with 12 people more than halfway through the season. And when the Ganz told you to pick a team and go with it so they could build chemistry, you didn't listen to me. And you said, I have Davis and LeBron, and I'm just going to mix in everyone. Well, guess what happened, coach, in the playoffs? You didn't know who to put in. I don't know, man. I again, keep Davis, great. I love Caruso, plays with heart. Hope that guy, Kuzma, at this point, I don't know. I think he's going to get other options. I like Marc Gasol's leadership. I like his passing ability. I actually like Trez, even though I think he'll end up leaving. But yeah, I agree with Rahul.
What do you think about Drummond, Cons?
He's going to get paid. We're not going to be able to pay him. And he's not worth what he's going to want to, what other people are going to pay him. So that's my thinking there. But I agree with you. If we would have made some sort of trade for it, like we were missing the Kyle Lowry, right? Because he would have stepped up. We didn't need Schroeder because Kyle Lowry's proven himself. Not that Schroeder hasn't, but man, I look back and I'm thinking everyone thought that was the worst trade in the world. And now everyone's talking about like, damn. But it's not about the what ifs. End of the day, I agree with Rahul. They need another subpar, almost all-star type player that can score at will. That's what they need. So if they can do that, they'll be okay, no matter who goes and stays.
God, even if they had picked up Crawford, Jamal Crawford, it would have been better than everything that they're doing now.
Austin Rivers was on the sofa a couple months ago. No one wasn't on a team, but Jeremy Lin, maybe something could happen. Maybe Linsanity could have came back. I don't know.
They had no offense. They could not generate offense. And we can get to LeBron. Look, I'm sorry, I love LeBron, but he was MVP candidate 21-7. I hope it's just the injury, but even if it's not the injury, he's just a year older next year. So it's officially time. I know they talked about this. That LeBron talked about it. The Lakers organization talked about it. The number one focus in the offseason is making sure that Anthony Davis's body is better prepared for the hits that it takes, whether that's gym or spending $1 million like LeBron does, whatever it needs to be. He's only played 75 games. He's a 9-year veteran. He's only played 75 games, 2 years. 2 years. Our money is tied up. Our future is tied up in Anthony Davis. If you want to invest in something, invest in making sure that man stays healthy, because LeBron is officially a number 2 option. He is number 2, and if you get somebody else, he might even be number 3. He might be the CP3 to Booker and everybody else, right? That's what he is. But that means you need your Booker. Anthony Davis has got to stay on the floor.
I agree 100%. Nobody's going to beat Father Time. And to all those fans saying that LeBron choked, it's Father Time, dude. He's played
messed up. Yeah.
Yeah, he's played at a high level for so many years, gone to the finals so many years in a row. Like, you can't say that.
If we had just defended our title with the team we had the previous year, you bring back Danny Green, hopefully he'd make his threes. We still would have, like, Dwight Howard would have been so important in this series if we had Dwight Howard versus defending Ayton and LeBron still doing LeBron things. And the Schroeder wasn't doing anything. So I'm just thinking, like, if we had last year's team, but again, I can't go. We can't play that game. It's just we have to move on. Like, you understand the moves that Pelinka made to try to, have the future while also having the present. Bringing in someone like Schroeder, but it just didn't work out. I agree with the Ganz. Schroeder needs to go to another team, sign and trade. We'll do something. Another pod will probably talk about other options like potentially like CJ McCollum. Portland bowed out early. There's no way they bring that team back next year. So left to look at these different teams like maybe I hate to say it, but like the FTC, the Celtics. Can you bring that team back again next year? Teams with promise, or the Heat, or maybe even the Heat. Teams with promise that didn't pan out this year that need to blow up some stuff. Maybe we could get some of their players, but I know that we're hard. The Lakers are hard cap, so trading for someone's going to be extremely difficult. Laker fans should understand that, but we'll see what happens this offseason. So yeah, we went along there with the Lakers, but with us being fans, I think it's deserved. So before we end our podcast today, about anything, Ganz, before you enjoy sipping on your Mai Tais, go into your store and getting some whatever you're gonna get. Anything else you want to add before we leave today?
I think the Clippers are going to pull this out. I don't know if you guys talked about it yet, and I think we're going to have a hell of a Game 7. So I'm excited about that.
Rahul, anything you want to add before we leave today?
Ganz, we talked about this when you weren't on. I am looking forward to Harden versus Giannis. No one's talking about it. That's what we're looking forward to.
1,000%.
There's a rivalry there, right? Giannis said, Harden said anybody can just take a few steps.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
So this is a playoff matchup between Harden and Giannis. I'm looking forward to that.
Ganz, enjoy Hawaii. Thank you guys for listening. We hope you guys have a great weekend. The Hoop Bar is closed.